The 5:03 p.m. rush is a contact sport in the financial district, and the most coveted piece of real estate isn't a penthouse, it's a parking spot. Specifically, spot number 87, tucked under a flickering light and just a 30-second walk from the side entrance of the towering Apex Plaza. For 3 years, that 8 by 18-foot rectangle of painted concrete had been my sanctuary after 10-hour days as a senior project manager. I'm Chloe, 42. I'm a planner. I built my career, and my life, on order and predictability. After my divorce, this routine, this spot, was a cornerstone of the new, stable world I was building for myself and my 9-year-old daughter, Lily. Which is why the scene unfolding before me felt like a personal violation. A gleaming, canary yellow SUV was angled into my spot, its back wheels firmly over the line. And leaning against the driver's side door, examining her nails with an air of profound boredom, was Brenda. I didn't know her last name then. To me, she was just the Karen. Mid-50s, severe blonde bob, always dressed in expensive, brash leisure wear. I rolled down my window. Excuse me? That's my reserved spot. It clearly has my license plate number on the sign. She didn't even look up. I'll just be a minute, sweetheart. I'm waiting for my husband. This isn't a loading zone, I said, my voice tight. It's a paid, reserved spot. Mine. Finally, she tilted her head, giving me a look of pure, undiluted condescension. You people are so dramatic. It's a patch of asphalt. Find another one. This patch of asphalt costs me $250 a month, I shot back. And I'm not, you people. I'm the person who pays for it. Now, please move. Her eyes, a cold, flinty blue, narrowed. Make me. For a moment, pure, red-hot rage clouded my vision. I imagined laying on the horn, of getting out and causing a scene that would echo through the concrete canyon of the parking garage. But I saw Lily's booster seat in my rearview mirror. I saw the long day etched on my own face. This wasn't a battle to be won with shouts. I took a deep, slow breath. The anger didn't disappear, it just cooled, solidified, and turned into something far more dangerous, resolve. I looked directly at Brenda, and a slow, calm smile spread across my face. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was the smile of a chess player who has just seen 10 moves ahead. Okay, I said, my voice unnervingly placid. You win. For today. Her smirk of victory was instantaneous and ugly. I simply put my car in reverse, found a spot on the far, dark end of the garage, and began the 5-minute walk back to the elevator, the click of my heels echoing like a countdown. The war for spot number 87 had just begun, and she had no idea she'd just provoked a general. The next day, she was there again. This time, she didn't even pretend to be waiting. She was just parked. In my spot. My name, my license plate, meant nothing to her. I went to the building management office, housed in a stuffy little room off the main lobby. The property manager, a harried man named Dave, sighed when I mentioned Brenda. Ah, Mrs. Henderson, he said, rubbing his temples. She's a tenant in the residential tower. Look, Ms. Webb, I've spoken to her. Her husband is a big-shot lawyer. They throw their weight around. My hands are tied. It's a civil matter. A civil matter? I repeated, incredulous. She's trespassing on a property I lease from you. It's your job to enforce the contracts. I put a warning on her windshield, he said weakly. It was a pattern that repeated itself for 2 weeks. Every single day, the yellow SUV was in my spot. Dave's warnings escalated to a $50 fine, which she apparently paid with a sneer. The cost was clearly just a nuisance fee for her, a small price for the thrill of dominance. The betrayal was multi-layered. There was Brenda's sheer, unadulterated entitlement. But there was also the betrayal by the building management, who were too cowardly or too lazy to uphold their own agreements. They were enabling a bully because it was easier than facing her down. The final straw came on a Wednesday. I had to pick up Lily from a chess tournament. I was running late. And there she was. But today, she wasn't just in my spot. She had a friend with her, a woman in a similar uniform of entitlement, and they were laughing, pointing at the sign with my name on it. As I approached, fuming, Brenda turned to her friend. "See? This is the one I was telling you about. Gets so worked up over a little square. It's pathetic." Her friend giggled. Some people have such small lives. That was it. The insult wasn't just to me, it was to the life I had painstakingly built from the ashes of my old one. The life that provided for my daughter. In their eyes, my stability, my order, was small. It was the moment I stopped being angry and started being strategic. My revenge would not be a honked horn or a keyed car. It would be an acquisition. You see, Brenda saw me as a struggling office worker, a little person. What she didn't know was that my small life included a very, very large portfolio. My decade in project management had been spent orchestrating multi-million-dollar tech integrations. I'd taken a lot of my compensation in stock options. And a few of those startups had, well, they'd done all right. I lived modestly, drove a sensible car, and invested aggressively. My financial life was the one part of my world Brenda couldn't see from her parking spot. That night, after tucking Lily in, I went to my home office. I opened my laptop. The symbolic gesture wasn't an envelope or a recording. It was a Bloomberg terminal login. I started digging. Apex Plaza was owned by a shell company, which was ultimately a subsidiary of a large, publicly traded real estate investment trust, REIT. It was a faceless, corporate entity. But then I looked deeper into the residential tower where Brenda lived. It was a different beast, a luxury condominium building named the Crestview. A little more research, cross-referencing property records with the name Henderson, and I found my target. Brenda and her husband, Robert Henderson, owned a sprawling penthouse apartment in the Crestview. A predatory smile touched my lips. They didn't just live there, their entire identity was tied up in that apartment. It was their castle, the physical manifestation of their status. Then I looked into the ownership of the Crestview itself. It wasn't owned by a giant REIT. It was owned by a private, family-run holding company that was, according to some business news articles from a few years back, struggling. The patriarch was looking to retire, and none of his children wanted to take over the business. The property, while luxurious, was a drain on their resources. They were quietly looking for a buyer. The pieces clicked into place with the satisfying finality of a vault door closing. I knew what I had to do. I wasn't going to fight Brenda for a parking spot. I was going to buy the entire battlefield. My power move was executed with the quiet precision of a corporate takeover, because that's essentially what it was. I didn't call the holding company myself. I had my lawyer, a sharp, unflappable woman named Anna, make the initial inquiry. We presented ourselves as Webb Holdings, LLC, a private investment firm interested in a discrete acquisition of their residential portfolio, specifically the Crestview. The negotiations took a month. I met the aging owner, a tired man named Arthur, in a law office high above the city. He was relieved to be offloading the property. We agreed on a price, a number that was a significant portion of my net worth, but one I could comfortably manage. It was an investment, I told myself. A very, very satisfying one. The papers were signed. The money was wired. And just like that, I, Chloe Webb, single mother and project manager, became the sole owner of the Crestview luxury condominium building. The first thing I did, the very day the deal closed, was not to evict Brenda. That would be too crude, too obvious. No, my first act as the new landlord was to have a new, freshly painted, an absolutely unignorable sign installed in the parking garage, right next to the elevator doors on the residential level. Notice to all residents. Effective immediately, as per new building ownership, all unassigned and visitor parking is hereby converted to reserved spaces for commercial tenants of Apex Plaza. Any vehicle parked in these spaces without a valid, leased permit will be towed at the vehicle owner's expense. No warnings will be issued. Webb Holdings, LLC, Management. I had Dave, the now terrified property manager from Apex Plaza, who had just found out his new boss was me, personally slide a copy of this notice under every single door at the Crestview, including the Henderson's penthouse. The power shift was absolute. Brenda was no longer stealing from a faceless corporation or a powerless office worker. She was stealing from me. Personally. And I was a landlord with zero tolerance for lease violations. It took less than 24 hours. I was in my new, albeit temporary, property manager's office at the Crestview, going over paperwork, when the door flew open without a knock. Brenda Henderson stood there, her face a mottled shade of purple. She was waving the notice in her hand like a flag of war. "What is the meaning of this?" she shrieked. "You can't do this. Where am I supposed to park when I have guests? This is an outrage." I looked up from my desk, my expression one of mild, professional curiosity. "I'm sorry, do we have an appointment, Mrs. Henderson?" Her eyes bulged as she recognized me. The woman from the parking spot. The one she'd called pathetic. The pieces connected in her brain, and the fury was replaced by a wave of confused shock. "You? What are you? What is this?" "I'm the new owner of the Crestview," I said calmly, steepling my fingers. "And the new parking policy is non-negotiable. It's clearly outlined in your lease agreement, which, I might add, you are now in violation of." She cycled through the stages rapidly. "Anger, this is harassment. I'll have my husband sue you into oblivion. Manipulation, you don't understand the chaos this is causing. The residents are furious. We'll have you removed." And finally, a desperate, sputtering form of begging, you can't, our parking, this is because of that spot, isn't it? That stupid spot." I leaned forward, my voice dropping to a cold, quiet tone. "It was never about the spot, Brenda. It was about the principle. You saw something someone else valued, and you decided you were entitled to it simply because you wanted it. You believed the rules didn't apply to you. You thought my life was small." I gestured around the office, at the building deeds on the desk. Turns out, it was just quiet. The blood drained from her face. She realized this wasn't a petty squabble. This was a fundamental recalibration of power. She had been picking on someone she considered beneath her, only to discover that person was now, quite literally, her landlord. "You've been planning this," she whispered, her voice hollow with disbelief. "From the moment you told me to find another one," I confirmed. And I did. I found the whole building. The fallout among the residents was surprisingly positive. Most of them were reasonable people who had also been annoyed by Brenda's entitled behavior for years. The new, strict parking rules actually solved a long-standing congestion problem. When they found out the new owner was the woman Brenda had been bullying, a strange sense of poetic justice rippled through the community. I received several notes of thanks from other residents. The most important conversation was with Lily. She noticed the new paperwork on my desk, the building schematics. "Mom, what's all this?" she asked. I sat her down. "You know that mean lady who kept taking Mommy's parking spot?" Lily nodded, her eyes wide. "Well, she thought she could take it because she thought she was more important than us. But in this world, honey, you don't fight bullies by screaming at them. You make sure you're in a position where they can't ever bully you again. So, I bought her building." Lily processed this for a moment. "So, she has to ask you for permission to have a puppy?" I laughed. Something like that. The point is, I used my brain and my resources to solve a problem permanently. Remember that. Always be the one who owns the building, not the one fighting for a parking spot. Brenda's world didn't just unravel, it became incredibly inconvenient. With no visitor parking, her social life suffered. Her ladies who lunch couldn't just pop over. Delivery drivers got confused. But the real collapse was social. The story of why the parking rules changed got out. She became a pariah in her own building, the subject of whispers and eye rolls in the elevator. Her husband, the big-shot lawyer, was powerless. He reviewed the lease, my changes were perfectly legal. He could fight it, but it would be expensive, public, and humiliating. They were trapped. They lived in a home they owned, but the land it stood on, the walls, the very air they breathed, was now under my control. Every maintenance request, every query, had to go through an office that I ultimately commanded. The constant, low-grade reminder of her defeat was inescapable. The woman who valued status above all else was now a laughingstock in the one place her status was supposed to matter most. A few months later, a "for sale" sign appeared outside the Henderson penthouse. They were moving. They couldn't stand living in a building owned by the pathetic woman whose parking spot she'd stolen. She had tried to steal my little square of stability, and in return, she lost her entire castle. I didn't just get a parking spot, I got a new career. I discovered I had a knack for property management. I sold Apex Plaza's spot number 87, I didn't need it anymore. I poured my project management skills into modernizing the Crestview, increasing its value, and making it a genuinely better place to live for the tenants who deserved it. The revenue from the building secured Lily's future in a way I'd never dreamed. The poetic justice was absolute. Brenda's own weapon, her sense of entitlement and her belief that rules were for other people, became her downfall. She thought she was playing a game of checkers, stealing a single square. She never realized I was playing chess, and I'd just taken her queen and her entire back row. The old saying is true, if you give a woman a parking spot, she's happy for a day. But if you teach a woman to buy the entire building, she's happy for a lifetime, and her enemy has to move. If you enjoyed this story of turning a daily nuisance into ultimate victory, make sure to comment and subscribe for more tales of quiet, calculated revenge.